this particular individual, right? You're actually sending a signal, a message to RD that that person indeed is very much in business. Alright? So what you should do next? Advise them. Because this will also affect how you choose your supplier. Remember the morning session covered by Lily? I might choose not to transact, do business with person who are not complying. Because that poses risk to me when it comes to business tax deduction. That's the most important thing that you as a business owner, you as a taxpayer, you should know. I want to ensure whatever proof that I'm going to get is solid, is legitimate. When RB comes to challenge, I have no fear. I just open my book, then check. Right? So again, it's something for you all to think about. Look through if you have payment to all these people. Tell them. Another workaround will be, you tell them, why not? I park you under my payroll. Remember payroll? I will help you to deduct PCB, right? So in a way, I already help RB to declare a portion of your income tax to them. So with PCB, you will issue them EA form, you will submit form ECPFD. In a way, it's more secure to the company. Rather than I want to take on the risk that I need to explain to RB. Why throughout 365 days, I issue sample to this individual people? Are they in business or they are not in business? Right? So something for your business owner to think about. Why not talk to this freelancer, this person? I stop you under my payroll. I help you declare, pay PCB on your behalf. I issue you EA form. I submit form E, CPFD. Done deal. Alright? So it's an alternative for you all to think about. Again, how do we determine? Because every transaction, it can be both business and non-business. Always look at substance over the phone. Of course, if can, I'm being true honest with you, you can always ask them, right? Hope that they will divulge everything, they will tell you the true story. If I'm in business, I'll tell you, please register a proper entity, issue me E-Invoice. If not, I might want to consider you to stop you under my payroll. If I continue to issue self-bill, there's a risk poses to me. Please bear in mind. So how do I determine?
What about if, let's say the freelancer, so now I put it as my sub, as a part-time sub.
Yeah.
So not necessarily monthly I get a busy, but by when there's jobs. So whether do I can sell?
So if I think part-time when there's a job, you can consider as non-routine. It's a non-routine. So if this thing is not carried out on a regular basis and he or she do not have proper business entity, you can deem them as not conducting business and you issue self-bill.
For part-time?
Yeah, you have to issue self-bill. Alright? If it's payroll, everything will be paid under your payroll. But for your case, it's a part-time staff and you only give him or her job as and when there's a project. It's a non-routine job. Hence, you have to issue self-bill. If they have business entity, they have to issue you E-Invoice. Right? You see the difference? So how do we determine whether a transaction constitutes trade or non-trade, business or non-business? Come back to this fundamental principle, pages of trade. If my business, when I transact, I carry out any transaction, my objective is to seek profit, then that constitutes as business ready. Okay? Another example, if I buy things, I buy and sell very frequently, the frequency is very high. So that actually sending the signal to people that I'm doing trading, right? I buy and sell, and I earn the margin, I earn the profit in between, right? So these are the things that I just list it down here for information, so that whenever you're dealing with individual, ask them, are you in business or not? Right? If you are, please give me your E-Invoice. If you are not, either you want to stop them under salary or you have no choice but to self-bill. Clear?
If they were, they have set up a business, but
invoice receipts? Yeah. Just go back to the exemption rule. So in summary, what's the bottom line? If you're in business, seller will issue E-Invoice. You get E-Invoice from the service provider, all right? If they are not in business, they are exempted from E-Invoice and don't turn over below 150,000, or they are foreigner. The payer, the company, will have to issue self-bill E-Invoice. Clear? So remember, here we are referring to individual, and this is not applicable to non-individual. Why? Because business entity means you are doing business, right? When you set up sole proprietorship, you need to register with SSM. You need to have business license. That's why, in a way, it's not applicable to them. You are telling people with this existence of your entity, you're already telling people you are doing business. That's the logic behind. All right? Why is it excluded? So we have done with the first three. Everyone so far so good? Yeah, it's information pack, I can tell you, right? So that's why I say self-bill is the most important aspect under E-Invoice framework. I need your full energy and attention because definitely this is my most concerning part. This will affect my tax payment, my tax deductibility. So next item, interest payment. Any of you actually getting loans, advances, and paying interest? Yeah, I can see some of you, yes. So please pay attention. When it comes to interest payment, in general, the payer, the company who pays interest, they have to issue self-bill. Except for these 5 transactions. Meaning, these 5 transactions, the recipient of the interest income need to issue E-Invoice. I repeat, for all interest payment, in general, the paying company is required to issue self-bill. Except for these 5 transactions, the recipient of the interest income needs to issue E-Invoice. Let's dive down into it. First one, financial institutions, banks. Can I ask, any of you actually receive E-Invoice from bank? I can say none, right? Why? By right, bank should be fall under phase 1, right? They are big market cap players. They should have already fully implemented E-Invoice. Why, when I make interest payment to bank, I did not receive any E-Invoice from them? Why? Because they actually wrote in, they lobby with RRB through these associations of bank in Malaysia. And eventually, RRB agreed to give them concession. You have up to 1st July 2025 to issue E-Invoice. So from now, April to July, you will experience gradually that bank actually requests the interest payer to start putting in the details. Because they need to issue E-Invoice to you after 1st July. For now, they'll just give you normal statement, advice, that's it. They get the exemptions, they get the deferment from RRB up to 1st July, even though they should be fall under the phase 1 of the implementer. Correct? Those are big cap, billions dollar company. So that's the first one. Bank will need to issue you E-Invoice when they charge you interest. Okay? Second, when there's interest payment made by employee to employer, meaning you as employer, if you provide staff advance to your employee and you're charging them with interest, you, as a charger company, you have to issue E-Invoice. Alright? Number 3, when there's interest payment made to foreigner, meaning I have a third party based in Singapore, and I need money, I need funds for business expansion, and I get advances from Singapore company, and they're charging me interest. So when they charge me, I have to issue E-Invoice. Any transactions relating to interest that dealing with foreign country, you have to issue E-Invoice. And the fourth one, this will be related to group of companies, right? If you have a centralized treasury so-called system within the group of company, and that company basically have to manage all the treasury activity, loans, treasury, and etc. And they charge them interest, and the one who charging the interest, they have to issue E-Invoice to the related company within the group. Okay? And the last one, newly added in by RRB, late payment interest. Anyone of you here impose this late payment interest in your billing to customer? Yes? Yes, right? Why? It's an act of deterrent, right? Try to make sure that comply with your 30 days credit term. Be it 30 days or 60 days, is basically to ask them, please pay promptly, please pay on time. If not, 10% LPI will be imposed. So you just see this not necessarily as interest payment, but an act of deterrent, a penalty, a charges in nature. All right? So in this case, when you charge LPI, you have to issue E-Invoice. Got it? Okay. So let's take a look at this diagram. I think this will be related closely to all of you here, especially those that actually are obtaining loans, advances from banks. Or if you have FD, if you have access fund, you're placed into bank as FD and earn interest income as well, right? So in this case, what should the bank do? Okay, I'll explain in this diagram. Okay, let's take a look. I basically explain it overseas and local. Let's go through the overseas first, more straightforward. Okay? So for overseas, if I am charging foreign banks interest, for example, interest payment will be, I place FD, let's say in OCBC Singapore. So OCBC Singapore will pay me interest income, right? It's an income to me. So what should I do? I issue E-Invoice to OCBC Singapore. All right? It's an income to you. You place FD with them. In return, they pay you interest income. Next thing, if you obtain loan from foreigner, from foreign bank, and they charge you interest, you pay them. Again, you have to issue self-bill. Because I'm dealing with foreigner, remember the concept that we mentioned? For foreigners, I don't care about your E-Invoice requirement here in Malaysia. If this is your expense, what I'll give you, my statement, my normal supplier invoice, you do whatever you like. In this case, it's self-bill. Because it's an expense to me. It's an interest expense arising from loan that I obtained from foreigner. Got it? But now let's take a look at local financial institution. Remember, financial institution is part of the exempted list. This one. So in this case, what should they do? For you, basically you do nothing. They will issue you E-Invoice for the interest they charge to you. And for the income that you earn from them, which is FD placed with them, they pay you interest income, right? They will do self-bill. Can you see? When I earn interest income from the bank will issue self-bill. When I charge them, when they charge me interest, they will issue E-Invoice because I need to pay interest to them. So in short, you can see that when I'm dealing with bank, local bank, You as a company, you as the payer, you just sit back, relax, you do nothing. Because everything will be done by them. Clear? But for you, probably you need to keep a record. You can request bank for self-bill if you want. Normally, bank will give you a statement. And the next scenario, what if I'm dealing with a third party, non-banks, third party advances, third party loan? You can see between these lines and these lines, when we deal with overseas party, both are the same. If it's income, I E-Invoice. If it's expense, I self-bill. Okay? Try not to confuse yourself. When I'm dealing with foreigners, if it's my interest income, I issue them E-Invoice. If it's my interest expense, I issue self-bill. But how about with local? How about with local third party? Then it goes back to the general rule, which is all interest payment, the payer is required to do self-bill. So who is the payer in this case? Let's say company pay interest to this third party because I obtain loan from them. I have to issue self-bill. Okay, when you look at this, when I provide loan to this, vice versa, opposite direction, who is paying the interest? Third party loan, third party is paying me the interest. They have to self-bill. Back to the general rule. Why? Because they are not part of the 5 exempted transactions. Why this will be different? Because bank is part of the exempted transaction. Clear? I hope you all get what I'm trying to say. Because end of the day, when we talk about interest payment, it will be mainly with third party or with financial institution. So just ask yourself, if I'm dealing with local bank, for me, I do nothing. Because they will issue E-Invoice for their interest charged to me. For my interest income, they will issue self-bill. But when I'm dealing with overseas, my income, I issue E-Invoice. My expense, I self-bill. But for third party, go back to the general rule because third party is not fall under this exemption list. Okay, I have done a quick summary of the most common interest payment, interest income transactions that we see in our day-to-day business. I just want to highlight, if I receive it from the local bank, I do nothing, right? Because I deal with local bank. They should issue self-bill. I can ask a copy of the self-bill, all right? So when I'm dealing with foreigner, this is my income, I receive interest income from foreigner, I issue E-Invoice, okay? When I'm making payment to third party, the paying company is required to do self-bill. As simple as that. Okay, next slide. Again, accrual or paid basis. As what I explained in the morning, our accounting concept is accrual concept. All right? Accrual means even though I've not paid for it, but I already incurred the expenses. Therefore, I have to issue. Therefore, I have to take up in my books, my accounting records. All right? So both are actually allowable by RRB. If you were to choose for accrual, you can. If you want to choose for paid basis, you can. Management, please set a policy. Again, my advice will be based on payment basis. When it comes to close of financial year end, do the one-time accrual accounting. If not, your auditor, your accountant will be knocking at your door, passing through audit adjustment. Right? So something to take note for the accountant and the finance team. So any questions, probably you all can just post through the Slido. Then I'll try to address it after or at the end of my sessions. All right? All right. Requisitions of information from supplier. This is one of the important aspects. Again, we have two more self-built circumstances, e-commerce and profit distribution, right? They will be covered by Ken, another speaker. But let me just go through very quickly on this requisition of information from supplier. So you can see, I have listed it external. External means I need to get this information from the supplier. So what are those information? If it's a Malaysian, IC, TIN, okay? If it's a foreigner, passport. And if the foreigner do not have TIN, you can actually put general TIN. EI, 9-digit 0, and with 30. That is a general TIN for foreigner when you are required to do self-build. Okay? So for company registration number, it's mandatory if it's a Malaysian company. Police address you can put. If you do not have information and it's not applicable, you can always put NA. These are some of the key information you should get from your supplier. Next one, you can see I label internal. Internal, this is something that you can get from maybe the annual return, when we talk about MSIC code. Because remember, in the annual return, there's one segment talk about the principal activity of the companies, right? And together, you will able to find the MSIC code of that company. So these are the things that you can actually do your research and get all this information. If not, you can always go to this link to find which are the suitable MSIC code for the supplier. If you still can't find any suitable code, IRB allows you to put 0000, 5-digit 0. Others you can put NA. And for self-build, we have 6 self-build classification code. All right? So what are those 6? These are the 6. First one, I mentioned already, is not applicable to all of us here. This is only applicable to getting those betting company. All right? That is 033. So for those who have importation of goods, when you do self-build, remember this code 034. All right? So if you have importation of services, 035. Then others that lying, which don't fall part of this 4 item. 37 is monetary payment to ADD. 45 is non-monetary payment to ADD. Just now we talked about transaction with individual conducting business, right? Freelancer, all this. Those will be fall under 036. Whichever that you can't fit into the remaining 4, just select 036 as your self-built classification code. All right. Next one. Disbursement versus reimbursement. Can anyone tell me what are the differences? Or you think both are the same? Not the same, right? So what are the differences? They have one similarity, I can tell you, one. Both also payment on behalf of your customer. Alright? That's the one similarity. But what are the differences? Let me tell you. Let's go through for disbursement first. When I paid some expenses on behalf of my client, my customer, you need to ask, is the invoice issued under my company name, the service provider, or to my end customer? All right, I'll show the example. So if the invoice is issued to your end customer name, technically that is not your business expenses. It's not your business cost. It's just a mere pass-through cost to you. Therefore, you shouldn't record it under your company P&L. You shouldn't record it as a company expenses. It's just a payment on behalf of pass-through cost. Why? Because the supporting is also not under my company name. It's my client, my customer name. You see the difference? So for disbursement, do I need to issue E-Invoice? Do I need to issue E-Invoice? The answer is no. I know some of you here, you might lump everything inside. Disbursement, reimbursement, together in the invoice. You didn't distinguish, you didn't separate it out. But bear in mind, if you are providing taxable services, and that's subject to, let's say, 8% of service tax, technically you are charging extra 8% on the disbursement to your customer, which you shouldn't include in your e-invoice, because it's a disbursement cost to you, not a reimbursement. The invoice is addressing to your customer, not your company. Right? So for reimbursement, it's the other way around. The invoice is issued under your company name. Hence, you can include that as your company expenses, and you can include that in your e-invoice, and you can subject it for service tax if you are providing taxable services. All right? So that's the main thing. That's the main differences. First one, invoice is under whose name? If it's in your end customer name, it's a disbursement. No e-invoice is required. If the payment on behalf of the expenses is under your company name, this is a reimbursement. You can include in your e-invoice and recover it back from your customer. Okay, let's take a look at this. That's what I mentioned just now. Based on current practice, there's no proper distinguishment by a lot of service providers. What they did was, they just include everything regardless disbursement or reimbursement. Because for me, there's no difference. But under e-invoice, they clearly spell out there are differences. Right? You must know whether this is your business cost or not. How I determine? Look at the invoice. Is it addressed to me or my customer? Okay? Okay, I have one client from employment agency. I tailor-made this example for ease of understanding. I think for the benefit of all participants here as well, because I listed down 3 different scenarios. First scenario, disbursement. Second scenario, not a disbursement. And third scenario, reimbursement. Okay? Let's look at the first scenario, disbursement. Okay, Tommy, I wanted to hire a domestic helper, a domestic man. And I approached an employment agency company, which is Agensi Pekerjaan ABC Sdn Bhd. Employer is me, I'm hiring a man. So, there's this immigration fee and levy paid by the agency of 3,000. So in this case, the permit holder is me, right? Because the man will be registered under my name. So accordingly, the immigration's invoice, everything, it will be addressed to the employer's name. And the agency company is just helping me to pay on behalf of this 3,000. And eventually, they'll recover it back from me. Right? So in this case, this is a pass-through cost to them. It's not their business expense. They shouldn't include in their invoice as well. Accordingly, they shouldn't also charge SST if it's not in the invoice in the first place. Clear? This is disbursement. A continuation, what is a not disbursement? If the agency is charging me agency fee of 10,000, all right? So this is technically their service fee, correct? Their service fee. So what they do, they will apply, they will include in their e-invoice, and that will subject to SST because it's a taxable services. There also is a SST tax registrant. You can see the total bill to employee 13,800, but the taxable part is only 10,000, which is 10,000 plus the 8% SST, the last bullet point. All right? So the 3,000 is just a disbursement cost, which I also have to show to my employer that this is the cost that I incurred on your behalf. Please pay me. And I shouldn't invoice that because I am a SST tax registrant. Once I include in the invoice, technically I'm I'm charging them additional 8% on the disbursement already. Clear? All right, a continuation. What is a reimbursement? In this case, they have to ferry the mat from Indonesia to Malaysia, right? So what they will incur? They will incur flight ticket costs. Probably they will incur some accommodation costs. Let's say in this case, they incurred flight ticket cost of 1,500. All right? So they add on additional processing fee for arranging the flight, 200. So you can see when they bought the ticket actually issued under the agency's name. So what they will do, they will treat that as their business expense and they will recover back the cost from me. So in this case, E-Invoice is required and they will include both the 1,500, which is the flight ticket cost plus the 200, the cost of arranging the flight. And both of these will subject to 8% of SST. They can include in one E-Invoice, just that have two separate lines presented in that one E-Invoice. So if this will be very obvious for those professional services, we have company secretary here where they incur SSN fee. Again, you need to ask, the bill from SSN, is it addressed to my customer or to me as the company secretary firm? For example, I run an audit firm, okay? My service fee is audit fee. If you notice, in my audit bill, I have printing stationery. I have postage and courier. I have traveling expenses. Why I can include inside the bill? Because it's a reimbursement to me. I engage with the printing company. Every month they issue me statement, they issue me invoice. It's my printing cost, right? Traveling, my staff is required to travel to client premise to conduct field work. So when they come back to office, they submit claims, right? It's my company expenses. So you can see these are the things that I can include inside the E-Invoice, and this will be considered as a reimbursement. Hence, it should subject to 8% SST as well. Clear? I want you to have this clear distinguishment between disbursement and reimbursement. Especially if you incur a lot of expenses on behalf of your customer, your client. The most obvious one also legal firm, right? Because legal firm, every lawyer when they're attending court cases, there will be something charged by the court. Also, they will be making payment on behalf of RPGT, stamp duty, and etc. So they will have a lot of issues when it comes to disbursement and reimbursement. All right? So you ask me another question: how do I recover these expenses, this disbursement, if I don't issue invoice? Huh? I incur already, right? But E-Invoice framework tell me not to issue invoice. In that case, how can I recover back from them? The guideline mentioned you can provide them with the proof of payment together with the receipts. If you are dealing with government agency, they'll issue you the receipts with your client's name. Present that to them to come back the disbursement cost that we have paid on behalf. All right? Or alternatively, you can actually issue a disbursement note, which requires some configuration in the accounting system. Because when we are providing services, the first thing that we'll do is every month we'll send statement of account. Because we need our money, right? We need to chase payment, we need to chase collection from our customer. What we'll do, we issue statement of account. So if I don't issue invoice, will the statement of account capture the disbursement note or not? Disbursement cost. So that's why system configuration is essential here. Whenever you generate statement of account every month, you send to the customer, the statement of account, the system will pick up disbursement cost as well. So that they will know how much they are owing you, how much they need to pay. Of course, inside you can see your service fee, reimbursement fee, and also disbursement note, everything inside. Another good practice will be for accountant, you can create a suspend account in your balance sheet. called disbursement suspense account. Meaning, when I incur some expenses on behalf, I will debit this disbursement account in balance sheet. I will have to credit bank because money is going up. Correct? So when I receive payment back from my customer, I will debit bank, credit back that disbursement account, suspense account. So that eventually you'll be able to track who are those people, how much are they owing to you. Right? But this has no impact to your sales because you didn't issue invoice in the first place. You just keep that as a parking lot to capture this disbursement. Because based on E-Invoice guideline, you shouldn't issue E-Invoice and this is not your sales. Alright, clear? So at least you have some idea. When I have all these expenses, how should I deal with it? When I come to account configuration, setting everything. So it's good you have a separate account under your balance sheet to monitor, to keep track the disbursement balances. But if people say, I still prefer to issue invoice, yes, you can, but please make sure you don't submit for E-Invoice. You can use it for your internal accounting reporting use. All right? Okay, so this summary basically sums up all the things that I just mentioned. Again, disbursement, no E-Invoice is required, it's just a pass-through cost. And I will just share the third-party supply invoice to the customer to claim back because this is not under my company's name. And I will record under a separate account code in the balance sheet. Whereas for reimbursement, this is my business cost. Invoices are issued under my company's name, right? If I'm providing taxable services, this will subject to SST together with my services. Okay? Is it too much to take so far? So far, so good? Okay, next I will be covering these employment benefits. Also one of the areas that will be impacting a lot of you here. So when we talk about employment benefit, first it must have a contract of service. What is a contract of service? Based on the income tax definition, there must be a relationship of master and servant, subsist, and in return, there will be a payment of remuneration in exchange of their services. Okay? That is the definitions that I quoted from Income Tax Act, just for information. What if I change the wordings to contract for service? What will happen then? You can see this is contract of service, right? What if I change it to contract for service? What are the differences? For contract for service technically means I have a service contract, right? The person is providing the service. For example, director. Certain directors, they might not want to fall under the payroll. They might not sign employment contract. They say, I'll come in your office once a month or twice a month just to give you my business insight, everything, help you to manage your business. In return, every month I charge you, say, 10,000. That is an example of contract for service. I sign a contract with a service provider. In this case, the service provider is the director. All right? If the director is doing the business, rightfully the director needs to issue the E-Invoice. Right? Contract for service technically means there's elements of business inside. I'm signing contract between service provider and clients, buyer and seller. Contract of service, it means employment contract. All right? So come back to here. What are the type of employee benefits that we can see? It can include both in cash or in kind. In cash, probably you have allowance, you have claims, gym membership fee, club membership fee, professional subscription. For accountants, maybe You have to pay for your annual SCCA fee, for example, right? So probably this can be one of the company's benefit given to employee, which allows them to claim for all these professional subscription. This can be one of the examples. So what should we do when it comes to E-Invoice? Right now, employee basically, they incur all these expenses first. Then they will submit claims together with the supporting document. And as employer, I record that as my employer expense. I record it for tax purposes. But with E-Invoice, first choice, there's this 3-tier kind of rules that you all can keep it up. First one, if can, E-Invoice always issue under the company's name. Okay? To the extent possible. But a lot of people, they face a lot of practical challenges. I might not able to issue under my company's name. Then what should I do? Number 2, issue under your personal name. So that's why this morning Lily mentioned, all the time, please carry your company's TIN number, your personal TIN number, because you might need to use it to submit claims for employee benefits. And the third one, first and second also you cannot meet, at least for number 3, you get a normal invoice. Okay? Provided you have policy to substantiate the claims. So that's why when we talk about changes to processes, this is one of the processes that you have to change. Your HR processes, your employee benefits processes, policy, all needs to be updated. If you don't, eventually all these claims, you might not be able to claim for company's tax deduction. This is what RRB will want to see. All right? Okay, so this is just a standard process. Check, first step, whether the E-Invoice can be issued under the employer's name to the extent possible. Try our best, ideally. Okay? If yes, thank you very much, job is done. If not, provide your own details. Then when you make payment, you get the validated E-Invoice. Next, go through your own internal staff claim submission process. End of the day, RRB want to see all these things properly documented. We no longer do things like in the past, I just go makan, get the claims back, fill up the expense claim form, attach all the receipts together. Now we need another step, which is they will ask you, is the invoice, the billing under the company's name or not? If it's not, is it under your name? If it's not, is it documented in your policy to say that the staff can claim for all these expenses? If you didn't make changes and your current policy didn't document all these things down, eventually we might have trouble when claiming all these things. All right? So this morning I mentioned employee benefits is closely related to expenses incurred on behalf of employer. Again, what are the type of expenses that typically we incur on behalf of employer? Traveling, accommodations, parking, F&B, staff refreshment, and etc. Right? So the process is the same. Employees submit for claims together with the supporting document, and the company record that as a company expenses, report for tax. But under E-Invoice era, go through the 3 steps that I mentioned. To the first extent possible, ideally, company name. Cannot, personal name. If cannot, get the invoice, update the policy. All in all, regardless you have 1 or 2, the policy in your company will need to be updated. This is what they want to see, the most crucial part. All right? Bear in mind, if all your company have a lot of all these expenses incurred on behalf, I know director loves to submit claims, makan this and that, then they'll just pass the whole chunk to the accountant. Hey, key in this into the account and try to claim, right? So you as the accountant, the finance people, you have to highlight all these things to the director. We no longer can do things, claim things like in the past. If can, please put all this invoice, issue it under the company's name. So that for the accountant, for the HR team to process, it's lesser work for them. Right? Because the invoice, everything already addressed, issued to the company's name under B2B already. For you, you just record it as your company expenses. So if your director have this practice of used to pay all these things in advance, subsequently claim, you will have to speak to them, change the processes, because eventually it will just add up to additional workload to the finance and accounting team. All right? So the steps are the same. I won't go through. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Now, before implementation, current stage. What's the supporting document? Normal invoice, receipts, we submit claim form. What the types of stuff claim? Toll, parking, makan, F&B, entertainment, upkeep, petrol, telco, utilities, and etc. All right? So currently, we still based on normal invoice receipts to claim from the company. Now, with relaxations, B2C meaning it can be individual, or B2B, it can issue to the company's name. B2E, issue to the employee name. All right? So that's why right now, when you incur certain expenses on behalf of your company, always tell them, if you can, put my company name. If not, I give you my team, issue to me. I will submit claims later on. So after implementations, tell them it's only these two choices. Okay, it's either company name or the staff name. For those suppliers who are exempted, you still can accept normal invoice and receipts because they're exempted from E-Invoice. They did not require to comply with the requirement. If I purchase things from government agency, normal invoice and receipts is allowable. What if right now I have business trip? I have business trip to UK, right? When I'm in UK, probably I need to spend for living accommodation, right? Makan, F&B, transportation. So what should I do with all these foreign expenses? Imagine the hotel in UK, they will issue me their normal UK invoice. In this case, I will allow you to keep normal invoice for foreign expenses. Okay? So if you're a business trip, you're traveling abroad, no worries. You can continue to keep normal invoice and receipts and submit your usual claims from the company. No self-bill in this case. Why? This is expenses incurred on behalf of the company. Not necessarily when you see foreign, I need to self-bill. No. All right? Clear? Okay. So I also received these follow-through questions. How do I determine whether this particular employee is acting on my behalf? Imagine any person can just come and say that, hey, I'm your employee, right? Then you can just record that as your company expenses. Maybe some of us do because we want to manage our earnings, we want to bring down our tax. We just say, hey, these are some of the expenses, even though it's not for business purpose, we just plug it in. Increase our expenses. So this also will be one of the aspects I will be looking at. How do you prove that your employee is actually acting on your behalf under your instruction? So there are some things that they want to see. So again, what can we do to overcome that? Number one, ensure whatever expenses that incur on behalf of the company, of the employer, you have proper expense authorization, proper approval. It can be in any form, maybe email, WhatsApp, or what, as long as some form of communications authorization given, that can be acceptable. All right? And make sure the purpose of the expenses is related to your business. You cannot tell me any expenses also related to your business, right? So this is what they want to see. make sure whatever expenses you incur, you can justify it's really related to your business. Okay? And again, you can have your own expense report. Okay, if I'm traveling overseas, you can furnish them with travel itinerary, right? If you're visiting your supplier, your customer plant, let's say in China, right? Ask your supplier in China, can you email me the itinerary plan, what we'll be doing there in China, right? Then from there, any expenses coincide in that period of your business trip is a legit business expense which you can claim, all right? And you can also enjoy for tax deduction. Credit card usage, I mentioned already, right? Especially for Facebook ads, Google, a lot of time, if you do not have credit card, corporate credit card, we will just use director credit card to pay. Again, make sure it is used for business purpose. If it is Facebook ad, make sure it's related to the post or the advertising program relating to your business. All right? And one more thing I just want to remind, for those Facebook ads, everything, make sure withholding tax requirement properly taken care of. All right? Because when you pay using credit card, you tend to be forgotten or neglect. Director probably also our plan every 2 months. Remember, for withholding tax requirement, I need to pay within 30 days upon payment to the foreign company. Imagine if I'm the director, I just keep all my claims, I submit every 2 months to the accountant. I'll be missing the 30 days deadline already. Because credit card is auto deduction. Right? One is linked with the director credit card. When the due date comes, everything is automatically deducted. That's when they were able to trace if they make a payment to the foreign supplier. Technically, you will be subjecting to this withholding tax. Have you complied with that requirement or not? Right? So it's something for you to go back and talk to your director. Whenever you have expenses paid using credit card, tell them. We need to relook into the policy, how you submit your claims. You should do it on a regular basis, but not every 2 months, 3 months, you pull everything and pass to me to process. You might miss out certain things, especially for those payment to foreign service provider. All right? You can do some declarations between employer-employee relationships, training, educate them, the policy. Of course, you have to maintain all the receipts, invoices, documentation. This morning I mentioned you have to keep for 7 years, and some of the internal control processes which you have to revisit. Ensure it tailors to all these requirements when it comes to staff claims. With that, I want to end this part with this example. Quite common, right, for us to claim petrol? So for the first scenario, fixed petrol allowance. Second scenario, mileage claims. Third scenario, actual petrol receipt claims. Let's tell me, under scenario 1, what should we do? What should we do under scenario 1? Basically, we do nothing, right? Because it's a fixed monthly petrol allowance. It's part of my salary, right? The package, which I will include that into the staff form EA. They actually receive this fixed petrol allowance. So if you already reported that, then you are exempted from E-Invoice requirement. That's the first scenario. Second scenario, mileage claims, 90 cents. So let's say your company, you have this policy of allowing your staff to claim mileage when they travel to client premises. Every kilometer, they're allowed to claim 90 cents. So what should we deal with it when we come to E-Invoice? Again, this is part of employment benefit and is exempted from E-Invoice requirement. But, take a look at this. You have to specify in your HR policy to say that all the staff will have this benefit. Whoever that travels to client place, customer place for business purpose, they can claim 90 cents per kilometer. It has to be explicitly stated in your policy. All right? Third scenario, if today I drive my car to client place and look in low field, I drive to Petronas to pump petrol, right? So I get the receipt from Petronas, the petrol stations, and I submit claims. So what should I do under these circumstances for E-Invoice? Again, you can claim, just that you have to prove that the employee is acting on behalf of the company. This will be the classic example for expenses incurred on behalf of employer. Because you are instructing the staff to travel to the client premise for business purpose. And in return, they can actually pump the petrol, get the receipts and claim. So what you need to do now as employer, just to prove that, you're actually instructing them to go, and in your policy also you allow them to claim for all these petrol claims related items. So some of the things that you need to revisit, first one, perquisite and benefits policy. Okay? You also need to take a look at your expense reimbursement policy. If you have a lot of overseas business traveling, you should relook into your foreign expense policy as well. This is some of the content or the items that I've included in the policy, just for your reference purpose. This might not be the full list, this is non-exhaustive, but at least this will give you an idea what to be included in my policy. Because essentially, this is what RRB will want to look for. I need to make sure when I revamp, I craft my policy, I have all these things inside. So let's go through what are these items. Okay, you probably have to spell out what are the type of expenses they can claim, right? And what's the claiming process, what are the documents that they need. First choice, obtain E-Invoice under the company's name. If not, under the employee's name. And if you have foreign transaction, how should you deal with it? And we'll talk about documentation, record keeping. This will be the employee's responsibility to give you full documentation in order for you to approve their claims. All right? And you should also have something on a regular review amendment of the policy. Last but not least, compliance and consequences. What if you have all this policy in place, but the staff didn't follow? You tell them, thank you so much for your contribution, but company won't pay you back. Right? So I think it's important for us to tell our employee, especially for those that actively incur expenses on behalf of the company, they need to know what are the claiming process and what are the things that they need to keep, they need to provide, they need to submit. Because eventually this will be for the company's benefit. Else I will not be able to claim for tax deduction. Clear? So with that, I end my part here. Towards the end, I will do a recap, a summary. So if you have any questions, just scan the Slido or try to address it at the end of the session. All right? Thank you so much for your attention. And thank you for the energy share. All right? Thank you so much.
Okay. You can take a lot of things, right? Self-healing. So the next speaker shall be Mr. Ken, also from Finamics. I'll let Mr. Ken introduce himself to you.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for introducing me. So for my slide, I would like to let you all know that my slide actually is started from page 69, right? So at your course material. So sorry that there is the changes on my slide, so you have to refer the under at the end. There is an under stepper. Just to make sure that you are in line with the latest slides. Similar like this. We have this. Okay, good. So I'm Ken from Finamics Taxation Services. I'm tax partner of Finamics Taxation. I'm licensed tax agent. And I would like to quickly go through with you the type of profit distribution. So if you can see, this is the type of entity that operate in Malaysia. So luckily for you guys, the good news is for public listed company, I believe it's not applied to both of you. But how about the Sdn Bhd? Most of you is Sdn Bhd owner or shareholder. So distribution dividend to the shareholder is not subject to self-bill at the moment. It will review from time to time. Then how about other entities like limited liability partnership, and as well as for the cooperative society, foundation and association, as well as unit trust and trust. They are the body that you need to take note. If you are the members or you are the person in charge in the entities, you have to take note when profit distributed out, you have to issue self-bill. And last, withdrawal of profit. I believe some of you guys operate as sole proprietorship and conventional partnership. So withdrawal of profits is not subject to E-Invoice. In this case, it's self-bill E-Invoice. So the key takeaway is LLP at the moment is subject to self-bill E-Invoice. The rest, for Sdn Bhd, no, until further notice. Clear? So imagine you are the private company in the middle, orange color. So during the year, you will receive dividend and you also distribute dividend to your shareholders. If you receive dividend from local company and you distribute dividend to local company, now at the moment, no need self-bill. But to take note, if you receive dividend from overseas, you have to issue E-Invoice in this case. Because the overseas company is not subject to Malaysian government tax regulation. Therefore, it is difficult for you to request TIN number from the overseas company in order for you to do E-Invoice. In view of this, LHDN already issued this general TIN for you guys. When you issue E-Invoice, you can put this general TIN EI. Please get sorry, this is the EI, it's not 1. So 9 digits and with 20 for the one that paying you the dividend. Next, please take note that just now Lily already shared 45 classification code. Then in this case, you have to take note, the code you have to select correctly is 032. So the LHDN can keep track on what type of income that you issue. So for this, the drawing and advances that you receive, this applies to LLP. In this case, the drawing that you receive, you take up from the LLP is not subject to self-bill. But bear in mind that LHDN will challenge you that is your drawing is belong to the drawing. Which means that when you get drawing from the LLP, you have to make sure that you repay back. It's not like the profit distributed out from the LLP. The profit that you take is just permanent. Then you take it on the deadline when you issue the E-Invoice. Then what is the deadline for issuing the self-bill? For local one, this is the deadline. The deadline is whenever the LLP distributed up the profit to the partners. It's different from the deadline when you issue E-Invoice for the income that you receive from overseas. In this case, the dividend income. The deadline is by end of next month, following month that you receive the dividend. For example, if you receive dividend in month of April today, so the latest deadline is the 1st of May. This is the example of self-bill that Tommy mentioned about, that Lily mentioned about. So you have to make sure that in this E-Invoice era, someone is self-bill you, but you have to make sure that the self-bill amount is tally with whatever amount that you receive, so that it will not have discrepancy when you submit your tax return. whereby the sell bill is more than what you have received. So I'll go through with you the deposit. The E-Invoice complies on the deposit. There's two types of deposit that the company will receive. One is refundable deposit, one is non-refundable deposit. So for refundable deposit, it's straightforward, no E-Invoice required. You just need to issue normal invoice to enter the transaction for the payer to keep record. How about the non-refundable deposit? We have to issue E-Invoice. Because why? The non-refundable deposit is already sales to your company. Therefore, you have to issue E-Invoice. For example, the refundable deposit that you receive, in this case, if you receive the refundable deposit in 1st of April, then you issue the normal invoice. What is the accounting treatment? You debit receivable and credit deposit for the deposit you receive. And then when the deposit kick in, then you debit back and debit receivable. What is later at the month end? The deposit become forfeited. Then you issue E-Invoice. In this case, you have to do another accounting entry. Debit receivable and credit sales or other income is depending on your nature of company, the industry that you are in. So after that, you have to net off again the accounting entry that you created before. Because now the deposit is no longer, the deposit is becomes sales ready. So I have to debit deposit and credit receivable. So how about the non-refundable deposit? In this case, normally this is happened in salon or massage services, whereby the client or the buyer subscribe the packages in advance. So for the company that operate in this industry, they have to issue E-Invoice when the buyer requests. How about the buyer did not request? Then normal invoice issue to them. But then this normal invoice, you have to include in the consolidated E-Invoice figure. What is the deadline for submission of this? It's when the buyer requests the invoice, then you have to issue. If not, by 7th day of the following month. So there is an exception. No invoice needed for this deposit that we receive, which is the payment overpaid by the buyers, or the wrongly made payment to you, or the rental deposit that you received. Now I will look into the e-commerce platform. The E-Invoice complies on E-Invoice, on e-commerce. So basically, nowadays, businesses will do business over the e-commerce platform. So in this case, there's two types. One is local, one is overseas. The overseas one is the Tmall, Amazon, and the Taobao. So how about the local? As you all will know, is Shopee, Lazada, TikTok, etc. So it's important for you guys to know that this is the flow of, let's say for example, it starts with the purchasers when they want to order food. When this purchaser wants to order food from merchants, they will place the order in the Shopee. In this case, I will quote Shopee as my example. So when they place order to the Shopee platform, the order will send to Shopee, and Shopee will send this order to the merchant. And merchant will arrange the rider to send the food to the buyer. In this case, there's two situations. The buyer consumes this food for his own, therefore normal invoice. What about this buyer buy this food for the company purpose, and this buyer requests E-Invoice? But bear in mind that just now, Lily and Tommy also mentioned that the liability of issue sell bill is live with the e-commerce, in this case, the Shopee. So after that, what merchant need to do? In this case, no need. So after that, the Shopee will help merchant to issue sell bill. And at the same time, because merchant is using e-commerce platform, Shopee will issue transaction fees, platform fees, and issue e-invoice to the merchant. Pretty straightforward. In this case, merchant do nothing. But if you are a merchant, if you are the e-commerce platform, then you need to take note. But bear in mind later, I will share with you what actually merchant have to take note. This is the summary of what Shopee will do. They will do sell bill, they will do refund in case this is a cancel order, everything, and issue invoice to the buyer and issue invoice to the merchant. And this is an example of Shopee issue sell bill for the merchant. And this is an example of Shopee issue e-invoice to the merchant. Where is the issue of where is the deadline of issue invoice? Is according to current practices. But actually, I would like to share with you on this slide that you have to take note on if you are the merchant, what you need to take note. First, because the sale bill already done by the Shopee, what you need to do? Actually, you still need to key in into the accounting system, right? In order for you to keep the stock movement. In this case, you have to take note. Because, for example, if you use your accounting system to key in, you have to make sure that whatever you key in, the invoice do not get validated at my invoice portal. And the second one, there is some e-commerce platform will issue you the report in the net sales basis. What it means, when you key in this amount into the accounting system, you have to make sure that the one that you receive is net figure. But then, bear in mind that just now I mentioned that Shopee is help you to sell bill in the gross basis. Therefore, you have to key in the gross amount. If not, there is a discrepancy between your accounting report and the My Invoice portal. So the third one, the final one is the finance team have to take note. This is the one they have to log in into the My Invoice in monthly basis. Make sure that the sale bill amount in the monthly basis is matched with the figure that key in the monthly basis. Let's go through with you the one that I mentioned about when you key in the sales. For example, you have to make sure that for the accounting system, there's an option for you: normal invoice, My Invoice, and the external. In this case, when you key in the sales into your accounting system, in order for you to control the stock movement, you have to key in external. And this will not get validated. How about this one? For finance team, they have to log into the My Invoice portal to make sure that they export this Excel in a monthly basis. Because under the My Invoice portal, they only keep this record in 1 month basis. You have to export it and do the reconciliation with your record. Yes, the portal only gives in the monthly basis a month. But then, if you request more than 1 month, you have to send it entirely to the LHDN and you get it. This is a very long process. And how about, just now I shared about the local e-commerce platform. How about foreign platform? For your information, foreign platform, they are not subject to Malaysian income tax rules. Therefore, they are not going to help you to do sell bill. You have to do your invoice for the income that you earn. In this case, if the income that you earn over the e-commerce platform in overseas, you have to do the E-Invoice. You have to issue E-Invoice for the income that you receive. How about the purchase if you purchase from the overseas platform? In this case, you have to do a sell bill. You have to sell bill the expenses that you incur. And this is an example that involves the F&B outlet. Nowadays, the F&B outlet, it operates in the e-commerce platform and also in physical store. So for e-commerce platform, I already explained. How about for physical store? If you are the walk-in customer, you walk into the store, after you dine in, you get receipt. If it's for your private consumption, then you just get normal receipt to do. How about if you want E-Invoice receipt for the company expenses, then you just get it. So the key point is, for IMB point of view, they got the sales from your individual submission, from your individual E-Invoice submission. And second, they will get to know that the sales figure from your consolidated E-Invoice that is submitted. The third one is, they will get the figure from the sell bill E-Invoice that issued by the e-commerce platform. Okay. Anything you guys want to ask? Because with that, I will end my presentation for this in order for you to go for your debate and meet the timeline.
Any questions? Any live burning questions? No? Okay, please give Mr. Tan a big hand of applause. He is ready outside. We'll give you a longer break. Please also take this time to get to know each other and then we'll give you 20 minutes for the break. And again, allow music will be announced as an indication that we will do 20 minutes. 3:25, you guys will come back at 3:25. Okay, enjoy your tea break.
I think it's called actually very much.
He expects to his degree. Anything no one
I can see some. He understands.
you should, you know what, instead he should come in and show him what to do, right? He know.
Because I showed him in front of Oscar and Eric, everyone who knows also without them. And then I showed him then I can see the face you can see. First, I think you want to eat next. Just but I want to discuss with Jackie. Catch him. I think next time. Yes, it's VIP client.
I don't trust you.
So you say, huh?
I don't trust you. I still need to sell double protection.
就是因为他在人非常很烦，只有回到我，然后他就有跟我讲，但是他跟讲我不要放在心上，讲他们完全没有要做好的好就是这样子。所以他会 take note， 现在就是他要 correct everything， 就叫我配合，我就等他，因为其实我们确实没有进很有经验，所以不需要讨论好，你反正就是等到他 OK， 还要有一个 meeting， 他就讲 kick off meeting， 叫完他不是他现在要知道要叫完全部人。Riff 圈后来 JP 圈后还有那个 Rafida 全部人呢，有 Emo 的人一起出来。2025年他想做对比，因为 Rafida 一直不会啦，又不懂啊，所以还需要 account 这边的 advice， 所以还要懂这样才可以做对。因为其实他 next time 我们24年如果做出来，就是按个别人的话，不是用2个。可是我看回去年的 report 啦，去年什么 lagi 的用 MFIS， 可是没有 compliance。MFIS 16没有做，15没有做，9中没有做，8没有做，所以我就跟 Jackie 解释讲为什么我没有 follow last year， 因为更加的不对，MFIS 对我讲还对一点吧，可是他讲因为他们要 MFIS， 然后我们用 MFIS， 不是他们要用另外一个的，所以两个都不是，可是我不懂是不是，因为他只是跟我讲，他就跟我讲，因为是另外一个的。所以我不懂是不是其实embassy not support enough，maybe 他要加的一个还是怎么样？不过他讲就算加了就算了，25年要做对的，所以他才需要一个 kick off meeting 这样子。然后也是等他，所以我就是要抓 Jackie 的。可是我刚才有是 child 的，他讲让我们来讨论，快讨论一下讲 OK，
I
Okay. What's what?
Can sit here?
Yes, what?
But a bit worried.
Worry for? I don't know.
Did you see the guy? The deadline is 9 May.
9 May. But we haven't received the AS.
Yeah. Can we request them to extend?
Who extend? Guy à? Guy cannot be extend one.
But
But we haven't received the mail. Because if by right we receive on 11 May, then their deadline is 9 we got 1 month. But now already today is
So normally how we prepare for guy? Guy is not a full, just some section, right? Each selected entity with some selected section, like typically 1G will have the initial land processing. So for example, we go in here and then we need to provide in this. So next week, so I think not quite postpone because when you're doing field work, let's say that you're able to go in, you're able to go in field work on this week. Then during this few days, you have to cover your guy already. So guy come first. The guy will come on the first and second day. So you have to make sure you cover your
start already first day.
So first, you all can set up first until third,
Guy.
focus on the guy first. So you only do like this one, you can make sure you can write them.
so our field work can be 2 weeks. We make sure the guy
Settle.
instruction be settled, then we continue for the rest.
But normally we will have normally we just schedule 1 week field work, right? So 1 week we have 5 days. Meaning first 3 days you have to focus cover on your guy first. Because we there already, you have to ask whatever you want to ask, and then some more EY will ask something, like say now will ask something, so we have to cover the guy. And then today will be the others. If you are not enough, then you can add on another 2 days field work on the next week like that. So I think it's can make it.
Can make it.
For me, I feel like can make it because now quite late. Previously we 2nd May. So now we start on 28. Got one, I think last year. Or 2022. Very rush one. The guy we just take 3 days to settle.
SLC, but we need to see the SLC, right?
Very rush one.
But that time we didn't settle.
I think last year no. First year, 2022. Remember got 1 year. It's very very rush for the guy because they can't postpone on the
It's
deadline.
the first year, I think. Hui said she went first May. She went in first May
Oh,
for the field work.
Don't remember.
that one I think we didn't join parting with. Not as
This
much.
is the thing that she highlighted. So 51G is land.
Land help for development.
I think this is okay. Different tax need to based on finalized thing. Then need to finalize the thing.
So actually you have 5 days to cover the guy plus another 4 days again. So I think it's workable
I
one.
think we go like this. We just focus on 51G, SESB, SLC, then KM and SSM, and then the rest, the C section, ask them to complete.
I think Shah can take. Last year I did myself the C section. I think Shah can.
Actually will be do concurrently. Just the side that you need to focus more on the guy. Because guy they will ask question, yes, you have to complete the whole working very tightly one. So this is your significant jargon also.
Then I think we need to tell them what we want, like how we want them to complete the thing, and then how's the working paper we want it to be looks like. Then ask them to follow exactly same for everyone.
But cash and bank balance, right, should be quite easier one.
Oh,
And
quite
get
easy.
Shah or Misa to have. Just have to confirm remove all the entity.
I can share last year punya my master checklist with Shah.
So I think this one you can ask someone help you. And then 51G, if let's say it's still dormant, they haven't launched anything. Actually, the land hub what they will learn. We just need to get the revised feasibility test. We need feasibility document, like how they will receive of this one. Whether is there any
How's it got
revised? They haven't launched. They just come out the brochure with a luxury condominium with private parking car park. Meaning they just start to launch, that they are trying to launch a luxury condominium with private parking. So they come out with a brochure already. Look at my last year working paper, I attach everything inside. Because it's for guys, so I attach everything inside. Very tidy one.
Because this year on SCSB Olympics, I received my email already. But I a bit forgot. I remember from 10K to 12K, for me agree already. Then SLC is like from 7K to 5K.
How about 51G? I think you go through the draft already.
51G, I think still remain the same.
Which one increase?
SCSB.
Oh, SES.
So actually my concern is on 51G, whether they started to do anything or still in the discussion stage.
Because no movement on the Olympics, I think still remain the same.
Because that's how they've been launched the brochure. So whether what is the next step they've been doing this year and like until 2025. What the like they already appoint some designer to redesign everything. So we need to ask the status quickly because this was asked by Selena.
She's the same.
So the feasibility
We can do it.
We can do it.
can make it one because like they've been postponed to 9 May quite late. Like
Okay lah.
few years we also 2nd May. And then 28, even 28 few work we also have to done on 2nd May. 21st we also have to done on 2nd May. So I think for now, unless next week until next week, MS they are coming up and panic lah. We have to let Selena know already lah. Then maybe still can let go lah. But as of now, I don't think that they will agree to postpone one because still workable. Can say it's still workable. We have 2 weeks.
You mean next week, end of Friday?
Can you imagine if you all receive the MA during this week, starting to prepare the QB, doing everything as we did last year and see if you're not, then come in 28, you still got 2 weeks before you see. Like, not necessarily really 5 days to settle. If you all cannot settle 5 days, then add on another 2 days. Just have to properly discuss with Simline because they need to pass us the access card. Okay? They will have record on if we say 5 days suddenly we last minute to say we have to top another day, maybe they are set we had to get the extra.
Can we just arrange more than 5 days in advance, and then if let's say we don't need, we just tell them, oh, this is our last
Last year, we also
can we just do like that instead?
Arrange for Hasha. Because the Hasha will be the one to get the access cards and then to give the Wi-Fi password everything.
Okay, so next week we still have next week to prepare and do our other things, settle other things.
Tomorrow, yeah, just have to, I mean,
Clear
chase Yap only.
Chase Yap.
Yes, every morning. Yeah. Why is it?
He'll say, I hate this Nadia.
We have received the blah blah blah. Then we have to done area of me. Just like
Can we
give the
just told
urgency.
him like we received the group audit instruction from EY side. We need to complete by 9.
I won't tell a date. If I tell a date, they will say, "Hey, still got time."
By first week of May.
I
By early May.
Early May. Urgent ones. We are quite urgency to get an A to start to arrange the viewer. A bit afraid for this is because Carmen is not here. If it's Carmen, everything can settle very fast. But Yaba, you have to push him. This guy. Or the CFO. No choice, we can go for a CFO.
Who is that CFO? Sue juga kan?
No, Sue. No, Joanne and Sue is cause
No, there's another
Got
Sue.
another
Got
Sue.
another Sue. Sue something.
Yeah.
Got
I
another
also
Sue.
remember it's a Sue, right?
Yeah.
The CFO, I think
Oh, with my UA, maybe I can arrange Tuesday lah. Monday, because need to send queries ma. Send query first, then give them one day lah. Need to think about it.
They won't think one. For my experience, they won't see. Shaji won't see one really. No lah, I think can be. At least their side lor. I mean,
At least I give her.
at least we send early lah.
Then I give her one day gap to think about it. How we're going to be. Then the next day I go in.
Okay.
If not, if like I send in today, then tomorrow I go. Then there's no time.
I think we should give a timeline to Yap also. Because next week very fast one, you know, the time fly very fast. If tomorrow we haven't received an pay and then next week Monday, Tuesday still haven't received, then we're also very tight, right? When we say have to come up with free already. So give a timeline to Yap, see whether we can receive the NA by next week, latest Tuesday or not.
Latest Tuesday.
Tomorrow I text him.
Yes. Just chase the Yap lah.
No worry. No need to remember.
Then you have more time already mah.
Other things, right?
Buy some time already.
Yeah.
9 May. Maybe 9 May. Customer still workable, and then if we done with E&O, then we can go start the March. Because
Alright.
E&O cannot change already. 21st we have to go in. Then maybe you also can help to join for E&O.
For in, oh, we have to go so.
Oh no, I need to go with my UA.
We got full week mah.
Oh, I got WSA.
Okay. I hope you have had a good tea break.
Okay, later
I
we discuss
received a
after.
lot of
After that,
questions
go back.
here, and I'm going to take the questions now. Okay, you can bring your coffee in. Okay, I think there are approximately 70 to 100 questions here that I will answer. Okay. Question: if I buy something and want to claim from the company from overseas website, means Amazon, eBay and all, or overseas supplier, how do I request for E-Invoice? Answer: if you are importing goods or services from overseas suppliers, remember your K1 form, so you need to issue self-bill. If you are buying for overseas expenses, meaning if you are traveling to overseas, you incur hotel expenses, let's say in London, normal receipts would do. Question: what is the supplier team details or buyer team details in the consolidated E-Invoice? So, the team details is general public, EI, followed by 90 and end with 10. Yeah. General public, 10. For freelance tourist guide, we receive guide fee, commission, tipping, all from different sources. Should we issue self-bill invoice? Okay, so if I'm a freelance tour guide, so if I'm providing my freelance services to another company, they will need to self-bill me because I'm not doing business. I'm just doing it as a freelance. Yeah, so they need to self-bill me. Yeah, but if I'm doing it repeatedly, then I'm actually conducting business. I should be issuing E-Invoice. Okay, so if you are just doing it freelance, you are not a business, and they self-bill you, my advice is go and check in your My Invoice portal because they would have reported you. You check whether the amount is correct or not, whatever they reported you. Next question. If I miss to request E-Invoice from seller, can I use physical receipt to claim personal tax deduction? Answer: in the absence of E-Invoice, yes, keep the physical receipt. Okay. Sole proprietors need to consider doing consolidated accounts as a result of E-Invoicing. So the answer is, for console E-Invoice is allowed during relaxation period and subsequently only for B2C as a means to inform IRB of your sales. So your accounting process may change, but should not differ too much. Okay, if you ask that question and my answer is not clear, you can clarify. Okay, so the next question, how much time do I have to issue an E-Invoice in the B2C training industry? Receipts are usually issued 1 to 2 weeks after payment. I decide arbitrarily. So the answer is this. So if you are doing training, you are doing B2C. Remember, you have a deadline to issue a console e-invoice by 7 of the following month. Advice will be to issue by 7 of the following month, before 7 of the following month, so that there is no timing difference between your My Invoice portal and your accounting. Next question, has QuickBooks Online has API to My Invoice? The answer is yes. We have been informed that in May, they will be launching it. And personally myself, I have been a beta tester, so I've seen the module. Next, B2C. I need to send console e-invoice. So say 1 out of the 100 customers in the console e-invoice ask for a refund. How would I go about doing that? So let's say eventually in 3 months' time, the person asks for a refund, you will need to issue a refund e-invoice during the time you make the refund. That's fine. 2 months ago, you sell to a B2C, you have submitted your console e-invoice, fine. 3 months later, she asks for a refund, just issue a refund note. Yeah, e-invoice refund note. So this is a question from an NGO. So we do sometimes receive grants and sponsorship to implement our program. You need to issue e-invoice for the grants that you receive. I know we have a few NGOs here, like AWAM, All Women's Action Society, and I think we have Amnesty International here as well, one of our clients. So yes, any grants and donations, you will need to issue e-invoice. Next question. What if a customer wants e-invoice, but we are not compliant even in phase 4? What should we do? Just tell them, I'm not e-invoice compliant, I can't give you an e-invoice. Simple as that. Yeah, I don't have to give you e-invoice because I'm not required to comply with e-invoice. Okay. Next question. If company are not complying for the e-invoice yet, then should I ask the e-invoice from Shopee to claim from my company? Shopee. The answer is yes, because if I buy something from Shopee, at the moment you can already request an individual e-invoice from Shopee, you can. So you can go and try it out. Yes, you need to key in the details for each purchase, like Alex said, because he has tried before. Request from Shopee, yeah. Okay, next question. For an NGO, we get donations and we must submit a tax exemption to the donor. Must we then submit an e-invoice? Okay, so what I would like to clarify here is, tax exemption for your organization and e-invoice is governed by different law. Yes, the person donate, you issue a tax exemption receipt. Yeah. So at the same time, you should also be issuing an e-invoice. 2 separate things. There are 2 separate things. Yeah. So if the individual require e-invoice, you give to them. If not, it goes under consolidated. Yeah. 2 separate things. Income tax law versus e-invoice law is separate. Next question. If sometimes we have walk-in customers to our warehouse to make small purchase, do we treat it as retail and consolidate the months, the e-invoice or individual e-invoice? So if the walk-in customer does not request for an e-invoice, it is considered as B2C. So you can just kumpulkan and report in your consolidated e-invoice. Question. How about e-invoice for printing service company? So my answer is, you are not any special. You fall under all the other categories, so you follow the general rule. Okay, next question on staff claim. Staff claim, example, staff buys something on behalf of company and claim back. So do I submit to IRB to validate before we make payment to staff? So for now, remember we talked about the 3-prong approach. First, you get the staff to issue an e-invoice under company name. If not, under the staff's name, and if not, you just use a normal receipt. And make sure your staff policies or employee handbook is updated to include, these are all staff benefits and the staff can make these payments or incur these payments on behalf of the company. Okay, next question. Regarding rental question just now, how about if I'm a corporate and I also own buildings and rent out as side income? Need E-Invoice? Okay. So if you are a corporate, you will already be issuing E-Invoice. Whether the rental income is your main income or other income or side income, it does not matter. You still need to issue E-Invoice. Okay, this is automotive repair service center. Okay, so there's a difference between automotive and a car repair. So if you sell cars, new car, second-hand car, it falls under, you cannot issue consolidated. But if you are a car repair shop, yeah, you can issue consolidated E-Invoice. Yep, yeah, you can issue consolidated E-Invoice. Next question from a property developer. Can I do consolidated bill during transition period? The answer is yes. Next question. Okay, if I act as a trader, example, I buy products from China on behalf of my customer, and I'm the one making the payment to the supplier, who should issue E-Invoice? Okay, good. Remember just now the dropship situation? When you buy from China, they are overseas, they are not going to give you an E-Invoice. So you self-bill that purchase, And when you sell to your Malaysian customer, you issue E-Invoice to that customer. Next question. If I pay to landowners for joint venture, do I need to get E-Invoice? Okay, then that depends on the landowner, what is their status. If the landowners are individuals, they just own land, they are not doing business, then you require to issue self-bill. Because the other fellow is not doing business, what? He's not able to give you an E-Invoice, then you self-bill. If the landowner is doing business, get them to E-Invoice you. Next question. Regarding payment to agents, especially property agents, must I do self-bill or can I request for E-Invoice? So the answer is, you are required to self-bill the agent. Okay, remember there's an example. I'm a property developer, you are a property agent. I'm paying you the com. You are a company. You also required to issue E-Invoice. But the underlying message here is, I don't trust you. I don't trust you that you will report your income. Property agents, I don't trust you that you will report your income. Although you can issue E-Invoice, but they put the responsibility on the payer to self-bill. ADD, that is the underlying message. You can issue E-Invoice, but I don't trust. I want the payer to self-bill you. Next question, payment to dealers. What happened? The dealer already issued E-Invoice to us. Okay, so I'm a property developer, you are a property agent. I pay you commission. You accidentally issue an E-Invoice to me, whereas I should be self-billing you. So what you need to do is, you need to ask your property agent to actually cancel or to CN whatever he has wrongly E-Invoiced to me. Because the responsibility is on the payer when I make a commission payment to ADD. Okay? So get them to CN it. Otherwise, it will be double. Yeah, you will be reporting the income as double, so you need to CN it. Yeah, correct. Yeah, wouldn't it be double? Yes, it will be double, so the fellow receiving the com needs to credit note the transactions. If agents provide E-Invoice to us property developer, must my self-bill follow the date or can it be based on my accrual or payment date? Okay, so the law says that apply it consistently, whether it's based on accrual or based on payment. It doesn't matter, just apply it consistently. But our personal recommendation is based on payment. Our personal recommendation. Okay, next question. Payment to ADD. Why still need to issue self-bill invoice even though already received E-Invoice from ADD? I think it's the same one like I mentioned just now. So if I'm paying you, I should be reporting you. You don't need to e-invoice to me. But if you have already done that, I'm going to ask you to cancel it. Similar to the question earlier. Next question. How do one know that self-bill invoice is issued on him or her if not shared by issuer? Okay, somebody self-billed me. Okay, that means the person reported me. How do I know? So you can go to My Invoice portal, key in your TIN number, and check if anyone has self-billed you, which means anyone has actually reported that you receive an income. You can check yourself. Even if they don't tell you, you can check it. So next question, our company issues credit note to our customers as their rebate at the end of the month. Do we issue self-bill invoice or we can continue issuing credit note? So if you are doing B2B business, you just issue credit note e-invoice. Yeah, not self-bill. Don't get confused, self-bill is solely for expenses. Self-bill is solely for expenses. Travel agency, inbound and outbound, considered as importation of services. For example, I'm a Malaysian travel agency. Let's say I do a trip for my client to Japan. I will probably engage a tour agent in Japan to arrange all that, right? And I pay them. So what I need to do is I need to self-bill myself because my Japanese counterpart won't be issuing me an e-invoice. So the answer is self-bill. Foreign supplier bill in US dollar, which rate to use? So this is up to you. You set your internal company policy on the exchange rate to be used and apply it consistently. So if you follow Bank Negara rate, make sure you follow Bank Negara rate all the time. If you maybe follow the CIMB exchange rate, then you follow that consistently all the time. Next question. If overseas customers or businesses do not have TIN, how to issue e-invoice? Remember, there's a foreign TIN. Yes, they don't have Malaysian TIN. They are not part of the Malaysian tax system. So you use a general TIN, which is EI 90 followed by 30. That one is foreigners. Yeah, whatever payment that you make to foreigners. Next question. Okay. What if multiple orders from one foreign supplier but all shipped in one shipment under one K1? How do I do the self-bill? Or do I do one self-bill? The answer is yes, you do one self-bill based on the K1 form. Next question, for sole proprietor, if the utility bills, e-invoice, are issued under the owner's name instead of company name, is self-billing required in order to claim as business expense? Okay, this is very interesting, okay? So I'm Lily, my name is Lily, I have a sole prop called ABC, sole prop. So in a sole prop concept, I am the business is me. We only have one team, me and my business and the sole prop only have one team. So I do not need to self-bill each other. Whether the bill is issued to my personal name, Yong Lily, or to issue to ABC is the same. Next question, withholding tax need to self-bill too? Answer, no need. Next question, are the rental tenants, landlord, joint venture landowners categorized as individuals who are not conducting business? The answer is, it depends on the badges of trade. Yeah, so you need to look at the other party. Is the other party doing business or not? If they are doing business, they are making profit, and it is done frequently, it may be deemed as business already. Yeah. So whether or not, it depends on the other party. Remember, just now Tommy shared, you need to be a bit kepo. Oh, okay, how do you do this? Do you do this as once a while or do you do it monthly? If you do it monthly, you know probably that person is actually doing business. Yeah. Then you ask them for e-invoice. Okay. If you look at the entire situation here, actually what it's doing is forcing everybody to comply. This system actually forces everyone to comply. So, next question. If director is the property owner and the company pays for the rent, and some property is given to staff to stay. How does the E-Invoice work? I'm the director, I own this office, and I rent it to my Sendirian Berhad to run as office. So the answer is, I need to issue self-bill to the director. That means I need to report that my director actually receives this income. That's why I say self-bill is top project. You whistle blow. Okay. Okay. Importation of services. What about services incurred first, then only receive invoice or you pay for the services later? When should I issue self-bill? So answer, self-bill timing is based on payment date or invoice date, whichever earlier. So it is advisable to request for the invoice once services are rendered. Next question. Okay, it applies to all of us. Chinese New Year ang pao. You give ang pao to your staff, right? Okay. Chinese New Year, hoi mun lai si ang pao. Okay. So the question is, need to self-bill or not? Okay. So if the Chinese New Year ang pao is considered employment benefit, you don't need to issue self-bill. But if you want to claim that as tax deduction, you need to include in their EA form. Okay, we are giving you answers from the law. Yeah, Chinese New Year ang pao you give to your staff, and you want to claim tax deduction, include in their EA form. So staff need to pay income tax on the ang pao, yeah? Okay, so there's two parts to this question. So the second part is that we also have quarterly Best Employee Award 50 ringgit voucher, whether need to self-bill or not. So it depends. Okay, if you go to Jaya Jasco, you buy voucher, 50 ringgit voucher, and you give it to your staff as the best employee, what you do is when you buy the voucher from Jasco, you ask them for E-Invoice. That would be your proof of expense. So don't need to do self-bill, just ask for the E-Invoice from Jaya Jasco. Okay, the next question, how about sell to overseas customers but delivery to local manufacturers? Okay, so the answer is, you will need to issue E-Invoice to your overseas customer. You will need to use the general team. Okay, this question is not so clear. Yeah, not so clear. If you are asking this question, you help me clarify. It says that related company. I have two Sendirian Berhad with two different shareholders, but I'm the managing director. So make a distinction between shareholders and directors, yeah? And one enterprise in which I'm the only shareholder, which is less than 150,000. Okay. So if I get your question correctly, okay, under the E-Invoice guideline, the enterprise will not be considered related party if you are not the shareholders of the other entity. Okay. So difference between shareholders and directors, even if you are the director, it doesn't matter. What matters is shareholders. Yeah. So if you are a shareholder or a sole prop owner, and then it looks at you as a business. If it's more than 150,000, you need to be E-Invoice compliant. If less, then no need. The two Sendirian Berhad also, if it's under two separate shareholders, it is considered separate, although you are the MD. Next question, if we hire interns for 3 to 6 months, do we need to self-bill? Okay, so the answer is they are part-time. They should go under Form E submission. You don't need to self-bill. So remember, do not simply self-bill. You can only self-bill if it falls under one of the 9 prescribed circumstances. Cannot suka-suka. Okay, if you're not sure, okay, just self-bill. No, it doesn't work that way. So if you're not sure, you should ask. You don't just self-bill. Yeah. Only if one of the 9 scenarios, then you can self-bill. Because there are some times that you do not need to do anything. Next question, non-monetary incentive. Okay, just now the iPhone example. Remember, Tony gave an example of an iPhone? Does Jeff need to pay tax for that iPhone? What do you think, man? Need to pay tax or not? Company give the staff an iPhone, non-monetary incentive. Do you need to pay tax? Yes, the answer is yes. Yeah? Whether the company pay you cash, give you a an iPhone, etc., you are receiving a benefit from the company, you need to pay tax. Next question. Transport company have their own customer, but sometimes also take job from Lalamove. Customer directly give the invoice. How about Lalamove job? Okay. So assuming Lalamove is under the e-commerce platform, Lalamove would have already self-billed you, so you do not need to issue an e-invoice. Next question. For non-contract foreign worker, need self-bill? Answer, yes. Payment to Maxis, DG and etc. need to self-bill? No, it is not one of the 9 prescribed circumstances. Just ask for the e-invoice from DG and Maxis. They are the big boys, they are already issuing e-invoices. Okay, next question. If my company requires to pay royalty for sales of product, how do I go about doing this? Royalty. Pay royalty, right? So if you pay to overseas company, you self-bill. If you are paying to a local company, ask the local company to give you an e-invoice. Next question. If our company apply for factoring or trade line, what do we need to do? So I'm going to answer this question in relation to the bank charges, yeah? So if trade line, facilities, factoring, there are interest costs, yeah? Then the local bank will issue you e-invoice. I'm not going to answer this question from how you're going to apply for a trade line, okay? So this is from the perspective of bank charges. Next question. Can we use the code 006 for disbursement in our e-invoice as we do not want to use a disbursement note? Answer, by right, this code is suitable for disbursement purposes, but to date, this code is not available at this moment, but we will keep you updated on this. Next question, staff buy pantry items, must request the e-invoice, right? Answer is yes. And after that, if the employer information, okay, right after that, fill the employer information correct. All the receipt staff need to pass to employer for record. I don't really get this question, okay? That's mine, next one. What if the company reject the claim and the e-invoice from the staff? Or if we rejected the e-invoice before the staff submit the claims? Ayo, kesiannya. Okay, the staff go and buy something, yeah, on behalf of the company, and the staff get an e-invoice from the supermarket, okay, from the supermarket. And the staff come back very happily, submit the staff claim. Then the boss say, reject, I'm not going to pay your claims. Yeah, so what do we do? Yeah? Yeah. So what we will advise is, make your policies clear. What do you allow your staff to buy and not to buy? Because in this case, it's not just a matter of e-invoice. It's a matter that your staff already incurred that expense and you're not going to reimburse the staff for the expense. So there's a bigger issue at play. So get your policies right, get your approval process right, yeah? So that the staff doesn't caught in a situation where I already incurred the money, then my boss doesn't pay me back. Okay, next question is, if the staff have a non-fixed allowance, what do we do? Include it in the form E. There's no self-bill because it's staff employment income. All payment to staff, no self-bill. Just put it in the EA form and E. Next question, how can an ADD or contractor claim Grab expenses? You may request for an e-invoice from Grab. So go to the platform Grab, you can request for the e-invoice. Next question, very interesting and applies to many of the clients here. For corporate credit card, do we need to keep individual receipts? Is the statement sufficient? This is not even an e-invoice question. This is a normal accounting question. Credit card statement is not enough, it's just a summary. Every line in the credit card, corporate credit card statement must be supported by receipts. Yes, that's right. Okay, that's all the questions that we have for the previous session. Okay, for now, I would like to pass the baton back to Tommy. Tommy will do a wrap up, looking at the entire P&L. Please welcome Tommy.
Thanks, Ruby. So let's keep the questions coming, right? Because we have another final Q&A sessions towards the end. So I would say we already addressed probably 60–70% of all the questions, but it's okay, just keep it coming. We'll try to address it. So right now, I'm going to put everything together from what we learned since morning up until now, right? I hope to get your full attention in these particular sessions because this eventually will help you and give you proper guidance in how to tackle when it comes to e-invoice implementation, all right? So you will know the steps, the way, how to apply into your business, and are already curated in a way that is easily understandable for most of you. So let's take a look at this diagram. I already mind mapped for the sales and other income cycle, basically in this single slide. Whatever things that we talked about this morning, or the sales cycle, the proof of income, everything you need to know is in this slide. All right, let's dive into it. So when I have sales, what's my first step? Issue e-invoice, right? That's the first step. So when you issue e-invoice, your customer can be from local or foreign. All right? So here we have B2C, which is people that walk in for retail, people that walk in to buy from me. And under B2C, anyone can tell me what's the requirement? What we need to do when we talk about transactions with B2C. We can actually do consolidation, right? Because B2C referring to people, you and me. We dine in into restaurant, we walk in, we are the patrons. When we eat, we pay for it. So as far as the business operator is concerned, those are B2C transactions. So they are allowed to consolidate and submit within 7 days in the following month for that console invoice. Then probably you all will be asking, is it consolidated invoice? I can only issue it once per month? The answer is no. There's no limit in terms of how many console e-invoice you can issue. For example, a certain business probably they have a lot of transactions, very voluminous. They can actually choose to do it once a week. RRB didn't set any restriction on when and how many times can you issue console. The when, yes, 7 days in the following months, but how about the frequency? Because a lot of you maybe think that I can only issue one console e-invoice per month for B2C, but that's not true. For certain company where I have a lot of transaction, voluminous, I can choose to segregate into by weekly console e-invoice. I can do that. Okay? So when I talk about B2C, let's take a look at this. You have a seller perspective. All right? And also on the right hand side, you have this buyer perspective. So for buyer, if I don't claim for anything, I don't claim for personal relief, for me technically I don't need an e-invoice, right? Because it serves no purpose to me. There's nothing that I can claim. If you want to claim for personal tax relief, yes, you should request for e-invoice. All right? So this B2C that I'm referring to, basically for those people who do not require e-invoice and they are unable to claim for any tax deduction because it's a personal consumption expenses. All right? In this case, they can actually do a consolidated e-invoice and submit within 7 days. Next one, B2B. B2B will be referring to people who require e-invoice, right? So it can be individual person, it can be company. So make sure from the company perspective, if I'm the buyer, I need to ensure I provided my company team and I received validated e-invoice as my valid proof of expenditure. All right? So for seller, I can be selling to company employee, right? The staff come to me, they buy things for office pantry. I can be dealing with the company staff. In this case, probably they will ask me, can you issue E-Invoice under my company's name? If not, under my name, right? So this will be referring to P2E, where the staff actually incur it for company use. Next up, when I sell to government agency, government body, P2G, do I need to issue E-Invoice? Yes, right? So from buyer perspective, it's government, so it's nothing. So what are the other circumstances where you are not required to issue E-Invoice? Remember the sale bill, we talked about the 9 prescribed circumstances? Our focus is on the buyer side, the one who pays money. But how about if you are the seller? Remember the middle column? What should you do if you are fall under one of the 9 circumstances? For you, you need not issue E-Invoice. You just request a copy of the sale bill from the buyer or the payer side. But internally, you can still issue your normal invoice because I need to do accounting recording, right? But remember, when you issue internal invoice, don't select the E-Invoice button because once you transmit to RRB will have the record already. Your buyer self-bill you, now you E-Invoice yourself, your sales will be double. You'll be double taken up. Same to the ADD questions that just now Lily just answered, right? So if I am the